Greetings, and thank you for watching. My name is Camden Anderson, and I am the author of this three-part essay based on the explanation of a painting I have recently completed, which I call Painted Jade. The purpose of these essays, along with the painting itself, is part of an exploration of the Aztec Year Cycle in conjunction with the Chinese calendar. Thus, the name of the work as Painted Jade in relation to the Chinese worship of that particular green stone. To start off, it should be pointed out that while the painting had only been completed in the summer of 2009, that this fourfold Mandela concept was first conceived by me in early 1997, and has been a source of study ever since that time. Furthermore, while the concept of jade is indicative of Chinese culture, the name of this painting was nonetheless inspired by the realization provided by Sir Eric S. Thompson's 1950s book Maya Hieroglyphic Writing, which indicates that the Mayan word for year, being tun, actually means green stone or jade. If Thompson's statement is true, then tun would be an equivalent to the Nahuatl word for jade, which is chalchihuitl, meaning precious stone. With the greenness of jade obviously being symbolic of the yearly seasonal renewal by way of the rains, we could then also see where jade would have become the Mayan symbol for the beginning of their new year, which took place in our July when the monsoon rains of southern Mexico brought new growth to the rainforests. At that time, the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, also had its heliacal rising. The fact is that this late-coming realization provided by Thompson's idea in his book about the connection between the Mayan name of the year and the element of jade would end up providing the key influence of the foundational green outlines upon the color scheme of the painting, along with its aesthetic design as being encased by the Mesoamerican jade quincunxes on the painting's periphery. These outermost designs are indeed of Mayan origin, which denote the symbolic element of jade through the use of the five-fold quincunx symbol. Later, the Aztec cultures would use this symbol frequently in their art and iconography to represent the fertility principle of rain and water. The Nahuatl word for these symbols is known as chalchihuitl. For that matter, the picture is supposed to represent a carved jade monolith dedicated to the powers of the sun as the seasonal bearer of fertility, and for that matter, it has been painted with colors pertinent to the color scheme of the Aztec and Chinese year cycles. The quincunx symbols are in turn crowned by white feathery symbols that are in fact stylized raindrops, as can be seen in the codices. On my painting, there are 72 of these stylized raindrops. The purpose of the fivefold quincunx symbols, which are found throughout Mesoamerican art and have been applied to my painting, have an astronomic orientation and are meant to denote the return of the sun to a point of the zodiac where the rains are initiated. Principally, this meant the summer solstice. The symbol also includes the fifth central direction, or the North Star, as the principle of rotation as well. Thus, we have the use of this fivefold digit numeric symbol as the basis of the jade glyph, which is meant to imply yearly seasonal renewal within the dynamic environments of the rain and water gods. As can be seen in this codex picture, the feathery ornaments that flow downward from the watery jade clouds overhead are in fact the same white ornaments that frame the classic Mesoamerican jade quincunx symbols. The picture here is that of the rain god Tlaloc from the Codex Laud, which is a Mixtec codex, and which is also among the most beautiful examples of a painted book from out of ancient Mexico. It is clear to me that this scene represents the Mixtec version of Tlaloc as the sun god, bearing the early spring rains and moving eastward along the ecliptic as the sun, towards the constellation of Orion, later called by the Aztecs Mixcoatl, or cloud serpent, which is depicted in red and white stripes to the upper left-hand corner of the plate. This codex scene, with its stellar implications, would seem to indicate that the Mixtecs had begun their year around the time of the early spring in our February, just as the later Mexica Aztecs had done. It is also known that the Mexica Aztecs had borrowed most of their calendaristic and cultural knowledge from these preceding Mixtec cultures via an earlier inception of the Toltecs, and thus the similarity in their iconography. However, the Mixtecs were not Nahuatl speakers, and differed greatly in that respect with the use of a highly aboriginal sounding language that was mostly inherited from their early predecessors, who were the Zapotecs. Now, with regards to the word etymology that would describe the Mayan year as being called a tun, there is yet only a small difference in relation to the appropriated Nahuatl word for year, which was typically called xihuitl, and refers to the turquoise stone and its blue-green hue. The Nahuatl word xihuitl has multiple definitions, which include year, turquoise, fire, and grass. The aspect of grass here refers specifically to the newness of light green vegetation, which in turn refers to the renewal of plant life by way of the rains. These references to natural stone are of course made specifically with regard to the greener varieties of turquoise available to the natives, and to this degree, the two words tun and xihuitl have at least the color green in common, and serve as a reference to the completion of the year in both Mayan and Aztec calendar traditions. Moreover, with regards to the more bluish-colored varieties of turquoise, it would no doubt seem obvious that for the Aztecs, the blue turquoise-colored stone would resemble the turquoise-colored sky, which was the home of the sun on its daily journey throughout the year. This would also reinforce the symbolic connection that the word Xihuatl has in relation to the luminous elements of light and fire. Now that the aesthetic foundation of the painting has been touched upon, we should explore how the idea for the painting had ever come into fruition in the first place. As a student of Mesoamerican calendaristics for over 13 years back in the time of 1997, I had begun to see and examine the close beginning dates between the Chinese calendar New Year dates and the beginning of the Aztec New Year dates. They in fact were occurring within one day of each other, or perhaps you might say for that matter, on the same day during certain years, save for the concept of the Aztecs having moved their year bearer to the last day of the month instead of the earlier historical tradition of the year bearer occurring on the first day of the month. Details aside, there are certain years in which the two counts begin within a reach of each other that is remarkable. Obviously, there have always been some psychological barriers in realizing the full potential of Mesoamerican astrology, and so for that matter, I had decided it was time to make the connection, so as to hopefully create a new foundation of realization for all those who are interested. Following this innate astrological connection, I simply created a graph, which linked the Aztec year bearers with the Chinese year signs, and finally to the Western Zodiac as well. The connection of the Western Zodiac with the Chinese year sign is based on a seasonal astrologic scheme found between the two zodiacs that inadvertently ends up aligning the most popular principal sign of the Chinese calendar, that of which being the dragon, with the first principal sign of the zodiac, which of course would be Aries. It is this correlation that is found between the three time cycles of the zodiac, the Chinese New Year cycle, and finally the Aztec New Year cycle as well, which will demand a satisfactory explanation, and which hopefully we shall carry out successfully. Yet for all that cannot be attained in this presentation, there shall be work carried out later by additions made to it. However, I must admit, because the information pertaining to a full explanations of the three time cycles had become very convoluted, I had decided to reduce the length of the present material from an earlier attempt at a full historical explanation of all the symbols involved to a now condensed and more simplified version that will outline the astrological interpretations of the symbols only. This, of course, is to benefit everyone on the factor of time. However, in the future, I do hope to elaborate even further on the details of the Chinese calendar to a degree that will make more sense for the associations that are being corroborated between all three zodiacs presented in this essay. Finally, there is still yet another aspect of the painting that demands an explanation, and this is to be found at the center. This symbol is actually a creation of mine that goes back to the 1997 conception of the mandala itself, and which is a somewhat surprising assessment of the well-known constellation of Leo that leads away from the explanation of the other three cycles found at the mandala's periphery. So, the first part of this essay will be devoted to elucidating the meaning of this central astrological symbol, which I had somehow in 1997 unknowingly created for the purpose of this mandala. As it turns out, this symbol would help further allude to the complicated relationship of the 12-year zodiological cycles of Jupiter in relation to the 12-year calendar cycles. So, in addition to explaining the various characteristics of the 12 signs of the popular Western zodiac, I will also be providing the definition of Jupiter's position in each sign, as Jupiter is known to remain in each zodiac sign for a period just short of 1 year. This fact of astronomy certainly justifies and provides some reasoning as to why this planet was known as the year star to the Chinese, and why theoretically it may very well have been the important mobile star of the Aztec Lord of the Year Xihuatl, as well as that of the rain god Tlaloc in ancient Mesoamerica's astronomic stargazing cultures. Now, the manner in which the eyes are attracted to the center of the painting is no doubt due to the bright yellow colors as well as to the familiar symbol which we commonly associate in our times with the Arabic numeral that represents the number 4. Here it seems that the symbol for the numeral 4 is reversed in this case, and that this reversed aspect of the symbol seems to also describe a nuance for what is commonly understood in our times as the astronomical glyph for the planet Jupiter.